So in this lesson, we'll be discussing about the standard 1B from ethics and professional standards. So the standard 1B is independence and objectivity. So let's see independence and objectivity তে কি বলা হয়েছে. So members and candidates must use reasonable care and judgment. So members and candidates, they must use reasonable care and judgment to achieve and maintain independence. So ultimately we have to achieve and we have to maintain independence এবং এই independence এবং objectivity in their professional activity. So ultimately আমাদের যে professional activity আছে সেখানে we have to maintain independence and objectivity এবং এটা মেইনটেইন করার জন্য we must use reasonable care and judgment. So members and candidates must not offer, they must not offer, solicit or accept any gift, benefit, compensation or consideration that reasonably could be expected to compromise their own or another's independence and objectivity. So কোনো gift, benefit, compensation or consideration যদি তাদের কাজে ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্স এবং অবজেক্টিভিটিকে ব্যাহত করে তাহলে সেই ধরনের গিফট, বেনিফিট, কম্পেনসেশন এগুলো নেওয়া যাবে না. সো দে মাস্ট নট অফার or they must not solicit or accept any gift, benefit, compensation or consideration that reasonably could be expected to compromise their own or another's independence and objectivity. So one thing is you have to use reasonable care and judgment to achieve and maintain independence and objectivity. And the second one is you must not accept, must not offer, must not solicit any gift, benefit, compensation, or other consideration that reasonably could be expected to compromise their own or another's independence and objectivity. So let's see the guidance. So এখানে আমরা buy side client, fund manager and custodial relationship, investment banking relationship, performance measurement and attribution, public companies, credit rating agency opinions, influence during the manager selection process, issuer paid research and travel funding. এই সকল ক্ষেত্রে দেখা যায় যে আমরা ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্স এন্ড অবজেক্টিভিটি দিয়ে যখন কথা বলি এই সকল ক্ষেত্রে মোস্ট অফ দা থিংস চলে আসে. সো স্ট্যান্ডার্ড 1B বলেছে যে the responsibility of the CFA Institute members and candidates in the CFA program to maintain independence and objectivity. So আমি যদি আমার objectivity and independence maintain করতে পারি তাহলে the clients will have the benefit of my work. So if we can maintain independence and objectivity, then our clients will have the benefit of our work and opinions unaffected by potential conflict of interest or other circumstances adversely affecting their judgment. So every member and candidate should endeavor to avoid situations that could cause or be perceived to cause a loss of independence and objectivity. এখানে দুইটা জিনিস আছে, একটা could cause or another one be perceived to cause, যে হয়তো it is not affecting but there is a perception that it is affecting. So could cause or be perceived to cause a loss of independence and objectivity in recommending investments or taking investment action. So external sources often try to influence investment process by offering analysts and portfolio managers a variety of benefits. ধরেন একটা corporation, they may seek expanded research coverage. Issuers and underwriters may wish to promote new security offerings. Broker may want to increase commission business. And independent rating agencies may be influenced by the company requesting for a better rating. So benefits may include gifts, invitations to lavish functions, tickets, favors, or job referrals. So one type of benefit is the allocation of shares in oversubscribed IPOs. So at the oversubscribed IPO, which means the IPO has a very high demand. So if you allocate shares to an oversubscribed IPOs, in that case, it might be considered as a benefit. So this practice affords managers the opportunity to make quick profits that may not be available to their clients. So such a practice is prohibited under standard 1B. However, modest gifts modest gifts and entertainments are acceptable. However, we should have special care special care must be taken by members and candidates to resist even subtle and not too subtle pressures to act in conflict with the interest of their clients. Even modest benefit নিয়ে যদি you feel pressure যে you act against the interest of your clients, তাহলে কিন্তু even that modest gifts and benefits সেটাও violation হবে. However, বলা হয়েছে modest gifts and entertainments are acceptable, but special care must be taken by the members and candidates to resist subtle and not so subtle pressures to act in conflict with the interest of their clients. Best practices হচ্ছে reject all gift or recommendation. So the best practice is members and candidates to reject any offer, any gift or entertainment that could be expected to threaten their independence and objectivity. So একদিকে বলা হচ্ছে যে modest gifts and entertainments are acceptable, but best practice হচ্ছে reject any offer or any gift or any entertainment. So that's the best practice. So ultimately one might follow that, but if they get modest gifts and benefits and that may not affect their independence and objectivity, then it is acceptable. That will not be considered as a violation. Receiving a gift, benefit, or consideration from a client, it can be distinguished from receiving gifts given by entities seeking to influence a member or candidate to the detriment of their clients. একটা হচ্ছে আপনার ক্লায়েন্ট আপনাকে গিফট দিয়েছে, আরেকটা হচ্ছে আপনাকে গিফট দিয়েছে someone else or other companies, they are trying to influence you at the cost of your clients. দুই রিলেশনশিপ দুই রকম। ক্লায়েন্ট রিলেশনশিপে এরকম হতে পারে যে ক্লায়েন্ট অলরেডি আপনাকে সাম টাইপ অফ কম্পেনসেশন দিচ্ছে, সো দেয়ার হ্যাজ বিন সাম কম্পেনসেশন অ্যারেঞ্জমেন্ট উইথ দি মেম্বার ক্যান্ডিডেট অর হিজ অর হার ফার্ম। সো একটা ক্লায়েন্ট যদি আপনাকে গিফট দেয়, আ গিফট ফ্রম আ ক্লায়েন্ট দ্যাট কুড বি কনসিডার্ড অ্যাজ আ সাপ্লিমেন্টারি কম্পেনসেশন, যে সে কোনো একটা সার্ভিসে অনেক খুশি হয়েছে এই কারণে আপনাকে গিফট দিচ্ছে, দ্যাট মাইট বি টেকেন ডিফারেন্টলি কম্পেয়ার টু other forms of gift. So potential for obtaining influence to the detriment of other clients, although present in that case, is not as great as in situations where no compensation arrangement exists. So when possible, prior to accepting bonus or gifts from clients, members and candidates should disclose. They should disclose to their employers such benefit offered by the client. So তার client তাকে কোনো gift দিয়েছে and it is okay, for example, in that case they should disclose to their employers such benefits offered by clients. So if notification is not possible prior to acceptance, members or candidates must disclose to their employer benefits previously accepted from clients. So disclosure allows the employer of a member or candidates to make an independent judgment whether that gift is actually threaten the independence and objectivity of the members or candidates. So members and candidates may also come under pressure from their own firms to issue favorable research reports or recommendations for certain companies. So আপনার ফার্ম থেকে আপনাকে ইনফ্লুয়েন্স করা হলো কোন একটা পার্টিকুলার কোম্পানির জন্য বেটার ফেভারেবল রিসার্চ লিখতে অথবা ফেভারেবল রেকমেন্ডেশন লিখতে, বিকজ দে হ্যাভ আ business relationship with that company, but other departments has a business relationship with the company. So the situation may be aggravated if an executive of the company sits on the bank or investment firm's board and attempts to interfere in investment decision making. So members and candidates acting in a sales or marketing capacity must be specially appropriate investment for their clients. So left unmanaged, pressures that threaten independence place research analysts in a difficult situation and may jeopardize the ability to act independently and objectively. So one of the ways that research analysts have coped with these pressures in the past is to temper the tone of the research reports. Such subtleties are lost on some investors However, who reasonably expect research reports and recommendations to be straightforward and transparent and to communicate clearly, but using those ambiguous language might help the analyst to safeguard themselves. Members and candidates are personally responsible for maintaining objectivity and independence when preparing research reports. তারা যখন research reports prepare করবে তখন making investment recommendations and taking investment action on behalf of clients. So recommendations must convey the members or candidates' true opinions, free from bias, or free from internal or external pressures, and be stated in a clear and unambiguous language. So members and candidates also should be aware that some of the professional or social activities with CFA Institute or its member societies may subtly threaten their independence and objectivity. When seeking corporate financial support for conventions, seminars, or even weekly social luncheons, members and candidates responsible for the activities should evaluate both the actual effect of such solicitations on their independence and whether the objectivity might be perceived to be compromised in the eyes of their clients. Buy-side clients. One source of pressure on sell-side analysts is the buy-side clients. So buy-side clients often influence the sell-side analysts. So institutional clients are traditionally the primary research of sell-side research, either directly or with soft dollar brokerage. So portfolio managers may have significant positions in the security of a company under review. তো আপনি যদি রেটিংটাকে ডাউনগ্রেড করেন অথবা সেল রেকমেন্ডেশন দেন, এইটা ওই পোর্টফোলিও ম্যানেজার্সকে adversely impact করবে in the short term because the sensitivity of the stock price to ratings changes has increased in the recent past. So a downgrade may also affect the manager's compensation, which is usually tied to portfolio performance. So moreover, portfolio performance is subject to media and public scrutiny as well, which may affect the manager's professional reputation as well. So consequently, some portfolio managers implicitly or explicitly support sell-side ratings inflation. So portfolio managers have a responsibility to respect and foster intellectual honesty of sell-side research. So it is improper for portfolio managers to threaten or engage in retaliatory practices, such as reporting sell-side analysts to the covered company in order to instigate negative corporate reaction. So although most portfolio managers do not engage in such practices, the perception by the research analysts that a reprisal is possible may cause concern and make it difficult for the analyst to maintain independence and objectivity. Fund manager and custodial relationship. So research analysts are not the only people who must be concerned with maintaining their independence. Members and candidates who are responsible for hiring and retaining outside managers and third-party custodians should not accept gifts, entertainment, or travel funding that may be perceived as impairing their decisions. So the use of secondary fund managers has evolved into a common practice to manage specific asset allocation. So the use of third-party custodians is common practice for independent investment advisory firms and helps them with trading capabilities and reporting requirements. So the primary and secondary fund managers, as well as third-party custodians, often arrange educational and marketing events to inform others about their business strategies, investment process, or custodial services. Members and candidates must review the merits of each of the offered individually in determining whether they may attend or yet maintain their independence. So next come investment banking relationship. So some sell-side firms may exert pressure on their analysts to issue favorable research reports on current or prospective investment banking clients. So for many of these firms, income from investment banking has become increasingly important to overall firms' profitability because brokerage income has declined as a result of the price competition. So since they have the investment banking function and at the same time the brokerage function, and the investment banking function is more important because that provides majority of the firm's profit. So consequently, firms offering investment banking services work hard to develop and maintain relationship with investment banking clients and prospects. So these companies are often covered by the firm's research analysts because companies often select their investment banks on the basis of the reputation of the research analysts and the quality of their work and their standing in the industry. So in some countries, research analysts frequently work closely with their investment banking colleague to help evaluate prospective investment banking clients. So in other countries, because of past abuses in the managing obvious conflicts of interest, regulators have established clear rules prohibiting the interaction of these groups. So although the collaboration between research analysts and investment banking colleagues may benefit the firm and enhance market efficiency, but it requires firms to carefully balance the conflicts of interest inherent in the collaboration. So collaboration is okay, but there is conflicts of interest in that collaboration. So having analysts work with investment bankers is appropriate only when the conflicts are adequately and effectively managed and disclosed. So ultimately জিনিসটা এরকম না যে you cannot have that collaboration. So that collaboration helps, but firm managers have a responsibility to provide an environment. The environment analysts are neither coerced or enticed into issuing research that does not reflect their true opinions. এর মানে হচ্ছে যাতে তাদের independence and objectivity in recommending through their research এটা যাতে বাধাগ্রস্ত না হয়. So firms should require public disclosure of actual conflicts of interest to investors. So ultimately what they do, তারা যদি publicly disclosure দেয় about their actual conflicts of interest to investors, in that case ultimately তারা যে কাজটা করতে পারে সেটা হচ্ছে এই কনফ্লিক্টটাকে ডিসক্লোজার দিতে পারে এবং যারা আসলে এটার বেনিফিশিয়ারি অথবা ক্লায়েন্টস তারা এটাকে মোর ইভ্যালুয়েট করতে পারে যে ফার্ম যেহেতু কোলাবোরেট করছে সেখানে সাম কনফ্লিক্টস অফ ইন্টারেস্ট থাকতে পারে সো দে ক্যান ডু দেয়ার ওন রিসার্চ অ্যাজ ওয়েল So members and candidates and their firms must adopt and follow perceived best practices in maintaining independence and objectivity in the corporate culture and protecting analysts from undue pressure by their investment banking colleagues. So এখানে যে জিনিসটা করতে পারে সেটা হচ্ছে they can maintain firewalls traditionally built. These two functions must be managed to minimize the conflicts of interest. So ultimately দুইটা ফাংশনের মধ্যে there will be firewall. So ultimately একজন আরেকজনকে ইনফ্লুয়েন্স করতে পারবে না, তথ্য একজনের সাথে আরেকজনের পাস হয়ে যাবে না এরকম. So enhanced firewall policies may go as far as prohibiting all communication. বলা হচ্ছে না যে কমিউনিকেশন প্রহিবিট করতে হবে, বাট ইন কেসেস যদি এটা দরকার পড়ে যে টু প্রহিবিট all communications তাহলে সেটা করতে হবে. So a key element of an enhanced firewall is separate reporting structures on the research side and personnel on the investment banking side. So investment banking personnel should not have any authority to approve, disapprove, or make changes to the research reports or recommendations. That's an important issue. So another element should be compensate arrangements that minimizes the pressure on research analysts and rewards objectivity and accuracy. এখন কম্পেনসেশন অ্যারেঞ্জমেন্টটা যদি এরকম হয় যে অ্যানালিস্টের রেমুনারেশন যদি ডাইরেক্টলি ইনভেস্টমেন্ট ব্যাংকিং পারফরমেন্সের সাথে রিলেটেড হয় তাহলে দে উইল বি বায়াস, তখন তাদের ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্স এন্ড অবজেক্টিভিটি ব্যাহত হতে পারে. So firms should also regularly review their policies and procedures to determine whether analysts are adequately safeguarded and to improve transparency of disclosures relating to the conflicts of interest. So the highest level of transparency is achieved when disclosures are prominent and specific rather than marginalized and generic. Performance measurement and attribution. So members and candidates working within the firm's investment performance measurement department may also be presented with situations that challenge their independence and objectivity. So as performance analysts, their analysis may reveal instances where managers may appear to have strayed from their mandate. যে তারা যে ম্যান্ডেট নিয়ে ফান্ডটা ম্যানেজ করছিল সেখান থেকে তারা সরে আসছে, এরকম যদি হয়। So additionally, the performance analysts may receive requests to alter the construction of composite indexes owing to negative results for a selected account or fund. So ultimately একই ধরনের যে ফান্ড বা ইনভেস্টমেন্ট ম্যান্ডেট ওগুলোকে মিলে একটা কম্পোজিট ইন্ডেক্স, এবং ওখানে যেগুলো পারফরমেন্স খারাপ করছে ওগুলোকে হয়তো একটু আলাদা করে বা ওগুলোকে একটু বাদ দিয়ে করার জন্য ইনফ্লুয়েন্স করা হতে পারে। সেটা যাতে না হয় এটা দেখতে হবে, কারণ সেটা যদি হয় সেক্ষেত্রে independence and objectivity বাধাগ্রস্ত হবে। So member or candidate must not allow internal or external influences to affect their independence and objectivity as they faithfully complete their performance calculation and analysis related responsibilities. Next comes public companies. So analysts may be pressured to issue favorable research reports and recommendations by companies they follow, because not every stock is a buy, not every stock is a sell. So ultimately যদি এরকম হয় যে কোনো একটা পার্টিকুলার কোম্পানি যেটা রেকমেন্ডেশন সেল আসছে, the issuer company may influence the analyst to not to do that. So a good company does not always translate into a good stock often. So in that case, if you see that it's a sell recommendation and you independently and objectively judge করেছেন এটা sell recommendation, এইটা দেওয়া থেকে বিরত থাকার জন্য অনেক সময় ইস্যুয়ার কোম্পানি আপনাকে ইনফ্লুয়েন্স করতে পারে। In making an investment recommendation, the analyst is responsible for anticipating, interpreting, and assigning a company its prospects and stock performance in a factual manner. কোনো যেন ইনফ্লুয়েন্স তাকে করা না হয় বা সে কোনো কিছুর দ্বারা যাতে ইনফ্লুয়েন্স না হয়। So many company managers, however, believe that their company stock is undervalued. এটা একটা ন্যাচারাল বায়াস এখানে কাজ করে থাকে, and these managers may find it difficult to accept যে কোনো একটা রিসার্চ রিপোর্ট তাদেরকে ক্রিটিসাইজ করেছে। So critical research report or ratings downgrade সেটা তারা often accept করতে পারে না। So company manager compensation may also be dependent on the stock performance, সেক্ষেত্রে এটা তো তাদেরকে আরো ইম্প্যাক্ট করবে। So due diligence in financial research and analysis involves gathering information from a wide variety of sources, including public disclosure documents such as proxy statements and the annual reports and other regulatory filings, and also company management and investor relation personnel, suppliers, customers, competitors, and other relevant sources. So research analysts may justifiably fear that companies will limit their ability to conduct thorough research by denying analysts who have negative views, যে কোনো একটা তাদেরকে নেগেটিভ ভিউ দিয়েছে এই সকল অ্যানালিস্টকে তথ্য দিবে না, তাদেরকে কোনো অ্যাক্সেস দিবে না, এরকম করে তারা অনেক সময় কনফারেন্স কলে ডাকবে না। রিটেলিয়েটরি প্র্যাকটিসেস include companies bringing legal action নিয়ে আসতে পারে যে সে আমাদের এগেইনস্টে ইচ্ছা করে হ্যারাস করার চেষ্টা করছে, legal or they farm damages for the economic effects of reports এই নেগেটিভ কারণে যে লস হয়েছে তাদের মার্ক ভ্যালু কমেছে, এটা তাকে কম্পেনসেশন চাইতে। Although few companies engage in such behavior, the that perceived যেরকম হতে পারে, that reasonable concern for the analyst, and this concern may affect their independence and objectivity, so that may make it difficult for them to conduct comprehensive research needed to make the objective recommendation. Next come rating agency opinions. So credit rating agencies provide a service by grading fixed income products offered by the company. So analysts face challenges related to incentives and compensation schemes that may tie to the final rating and successful placement of the product. So members and candidates employed at rating agencies should ensure that procedures and process at the agencies prevent undue influences from a sponsoring company during the analysis. So members and candidates should abide by their agencies and the industry's standards of conduct regarding the analytical process and the distribution of the reports. The work of credit rating agencies also raises concerns similar to those inherent in investment banking relationship. Analysts may face pressure to issue ratings at a specific level because of other services that agency offer companies, namely advising on the development of structured products, maybe some other businesses. So the rating agencies need to develop the necessary firewalls protections to allow the independent operations of their different business lines. So when using information provided by credit rating agencies, members and candidates should be mindful of the potential conflicts of interest. And because of the potential conflicts, since the company who's being rated often pays to the rating company, so there are potential conflicts of interest. And because of that potential conflicts, members and candidates may need to independently validate the rating granted. Next comes influence during the manager selection or procurement process. So members and candidates may find themselves on either side of the manager selection process. So an individual may be on the hiring side, representative of the pension organization, or an investment committee member of an endowment or charitable organization. Additionally, other members may be representing the organization and in an attempt to earn new investment allocation mandates. So একদিকে হতে পারে যে আপনি trying to hire any fund managers, অন্যদিকে or you are the fund manager soliciting for the business. So the responsibility of the managers and candidates to maintain their independence and objectivity extends to the hiring or firing of those who provide business services beyond investment management. So when serving in hiring capacity, members and candidates should not solicit gifts, contributions, or other compensation that may affect the independence and objectivity. Solicitation do not have to benefit members and candidates personally to conflict with standard 1B. Requesting contributions to a favorable charity, for example, or political organization may also perceived as an attempt to influence the decision-making process. Additionally, members and candidates serving in a hiring capacity should refuse gifts, donations, and other offered compensation that may be perceived to influence their decision-making process. So when working to earn a new investment allocation, members and candidates should not offer gifts, contribution, or other compensation to influence the decision of the hiring representative. So the offering of these items with the intent to impair the independence and objectivity of another person would not comply with standard 1B. So such prohibited actions may include offering donations to a charitable organization or political candidate referred by the hiring representative. So a clear example of improperly influencing hiring representative was displayed in the pay-to-play scandal involving government-sponsored pension funds in the United States. So managers looking to gain lucrative allocations from the large funds made requested donations to the political campaigns of the individuals directly responsible for the hiring decision. So ultimately, তাদের political campaign আছে, ওখানে আপনি donate করছেন. They are in a power to give you the allocation, and they are doing it. This scandal and other similar events have led to new laws requiring additional reporting concerning political contributions and bans on hiring or hiring delays for managers that made campaign contributions to representatives associated with the decision-making process. Next come issuer-paid research. So in light of the recent reduction of sell-side research coverage, many companies seeking to increase visibility both in the financial market and with potential investors, and they have hired analysts to produce research reports analyzing their companies. So their reports bridge the gap created by the lack of coverage and can be an effective method of communicating with the investors. So the issuer-paid research conducted by the investment analysts, however, is fraught with potential conflicts depending on how the research is written and distributed. Investors may be misled into believing that the research is from an independent source when in reality it has been paid by the issuer company. So members and candidates must adhere to strict standards to conduct that govern how the research is to be conducted, what disclosures must be made in the report. Analysts must engage in thorough, independent, and unbiased analysis and must fully disclose potential conflicts of interest, including the nature of their compensation. Otherwise, analysts risk misleading investors. So investors need clear, credible, and thorough information about companies, and they need research based on independent thought. At a minimum, issuer-paid research should include a thorough analysis of the company's financial statements based on publicly disclosed information, benchmarking within a peer group, and industry analysis. Analysts must exercise diligence, independence, and thoroughness in conducting their research in an objective manner. So analysts must distinguish between fact and opinion in their reports. Conclusions must have a reasonable and adequate basis and must be supported by appropriate research. So independent analysts must also strictly limit the type of compensation that they accept for conducting issuer-paid research. So otherwise, the content and conclusions of the reports could reasonably be expected to be determined or affected by the compensation from the sponsoring companies. So compensation that might influence the research report could be direct, such as payment based on the conclusions of the report, or indirect, such as stock warrants or other equity instruments that could increase in value on the basis of positive coverage in the report. So in such cases, the independent analyst has an incentive to avoid including negative information or making negative conclusions. The best practice is for independent analysts prior to writing their reports to negotiate only a flat fee for their work that is not linked to their conclusions or recommendations. And the final one is travel funding. So the benefits related to accepting paid travel extend beyond the cost savings to the member or candidate and his firm, such as a chance to talk exclusively with other executives of a firm, company, or learning more about the investment options provided by an investment organization. So acceptance also comes with potential concerns. For example, members and candidates may be influenced by these discussions when flying on a corporate and charter jet or attending sponsored conferences where any expenses, including the airfare and lodging, are covered. So to avoid the appearance of compromising the independence and objectivity, best practice dictates that members and candidates always use commercial transportation at their expense or at the expense of their firm rather than accept paid travel arrangements from an outside company. So should commercial transportation be unavailable, in that case, members and candidates may accept modestly arranged travel to participate in the appropriate information gathering events, such as a property tour. So that's all about the requirements of the standard 1B, independence and objectivity. And in the next section, we will be discussing about the recommended procedures to comply with the standard 1B, independence and objectivity. Thank you.